Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour and watched the stars through the main window. The ship had been traveling for 6 months beyond the edge of human space. This was the furthest any human had ever gone from Earth. Jake felt proud to lead this mission, but also nervous about what they might find in the darkness between galaxies. The Endeavour was not a warship, but an exploration vessel built for discovery. Its crew of 200 scientists and engineers had volunteered for this dangerous journey into the unknown. They carried the hopes of all humanity with them as they searched for new worlds and maybe even alien life. Dr. Lisa Morgan worked in the science lab below the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien biology, even though no human had ever seen a real alien. Lisa had spent years studying theories about what life might look like on other worlds. She was excited and scared at the same time about what they might discover. Commander Alex Carter was Jake's second in command. He was a careful man who always thought about safety first. Alex had argued against this mission when it was first planned. He believed humans were not ready to travel so far from home. But once the decision was made, he became the mission's strongest supporter. The Endeavour's sensors detected something unusual in the Kepler 442 system. It was not a planet or a star, but something artificial floating in the asteroid belt. Jake ordered the ship to move closer for a better look. The object appeared on their screens as a massive crystal structure spinning slowly in space. Lisa Morgan rushed to the bridge when she heard the news. She had never seen anything like it. The structure was at least a mile long and made of some kind of transparent material that glowed with soft blue light. It looked ancient, but also advanced beyond anything humans could build. Alex Carter ran scans of the object with every sensor the ship had. The results confused him. The structure showed signs of incredible age, but also contained technology that seemed more advanced than anything in human knowledge. He could not detect any life signs, but strange energy readings came from deep inside the crystal. Jake decided they needed to investigate the structure directly. He ordered a small team to prepare for an away mission. Lisa volunteered immediately. She argued that as the xenobiologist, she was the best qualified to study alien technology. Alex disagreed and said it was too dangerous, but Jake supported Lisa's request. The away team took a shuttle to the crystal structure. Lisa wore a full environmental suit and carried every scanning device the ship had. The structure had what looked like an entrance or docking port. The shuttle attached itself and the team went inside. The interior was even more amazing than the outside. Corridors made of the same glowing crystal led deeper into the structure. Strange symbols covered the walls, but they were unlike any human writing. Lisa's equipment detected power sources throughout the building, but everything seemed dormant or sleeping. They found what appeared to be a central control room. It was filled with devices that looked like computers, but were made of living crystal. Lisa approached one of the larger devices carefully. It had a flat surface that might have been a control panel or scanner. She reached out to touch it. A sharp edge on the device cut through her glove and into her hand. Blood began to flow from the small wound. One drop of her red blood fell onto the crystal surface of the device. The moment it made contact, everything changed. The entire structure came alive with brilliant light. Holographic displays appeared in the air showing star maps and alien text. The device that had cut Lisa began to scan her with beams of energy that felt warm, but not painful. She could not move as the scan continued for several minutes. Alex Carter's voice crackled through the radio, demanding to know what was happening. The energy readings from the structure were increasing rapidly. Lisa tried to answer, but found she could not speak. The scanning device was doing something to her mind as well as her body. Jake ordered an immediate evacuation. The away team grabbed Lisa and carried her back to the shuttle as the crystal structure's power continued to grow. They barely escaped before massive energy beams shot out from the structure in all directions. The beams seemed to be sending some kind of signal across the galaxy. Back on the Endeavour, Lisa collapsed in the medical bay. The ship's doctor could not find anything wrong with her except for the small cut on her hand, which was healing unusually fast. But Lisa felt different. She could sense things she had never noticed before. Colors seemed brighter, and she could hear sounds beyond normal human hearing. The structure continued to transmit its signal for 3 days before finally going quiet again. Jake knew they had triggered something important, but he did not understand what. The signal had been sent to every corner of the galaxy. Soon, alien civilizations that had been sleeping for millions of years would wake up and learn about humanity for the first time. Lisa's blood sample had been analyzed by technology beyond human understanding. Her genetic code was now known to every advanced species in the galaxy. They would learn that humans carried something special in their DNA that no other known species possessed. The galaxy was about to change forever because of one drop of human blood. The signal from the ancient crystal structure traveled faster than light across the galaxy. It reached sleeping worlds where great civilizations had been dormant for thousands of years. The first to receive the message were the Zephyrians, who lived on a planet covered in red deserts and floating cities. High researcher Vextai was meditating in his laboratory when the signal arrived. The Zephyrians looked like tall humans, but had blue skin and 4 arms. They were warriors and scientists who had chosen to sleep rather than fight endless wars. Vextai's eyes opened wide as ancient receivers throughout their cities came alive for the first time in millennia. The signal contained detailed information about human DNA. Vextai called together the Council of Sleepers to study what they had received. As they analyzed the genetic code, their excitement grew. They had never seen anything like it in millions of years of studying life across the galaxy. Human DNA was different from every other species they knew. It contained sequences that allowed for rapid adaptation and healing, but more than that, it held dormant potential that could lead to evolutionary advances beyond anything they had imagined. The humans were carrying the genetic keys to becoming something greater than any current life form. On another world covered in oceans of liquid, Methane the ethereal collective stirred from their energy dreams. These beings had evolved beyond physical bodies and existed as pure consciousness. Elder Lumina was the first to sense the quantum disturbance caused by the human genetic signal. The ethereals had been searching for eons for a way to bridge the gap between matter and energy. They wanted to help physical beings evolve to their level of existence. As Lumina studied the human genetic pattern, she realized these strange creatures from a distant world might hold the answer they had been seeking. Deep in space aboard the USS Endeavour, Dr. Lisa Morgan was experiencing changes she could not understand. The alien scan had done something to her body at the cellular level. Her cut hand had healed completely within hours, leaving no scar. Her eyesight was sharper and she could see energy patterns that were invisible to other humans. Lisa told Captain Jake Sullivan about her new abilities but kept some discoveries to herself. She could now sense the emotions of people around her and sometimes catch glimpses of their thoughts. The change frightened her, but also filled her with wonder about what she was becoming. Dr. Paul Martinez joined Lisa in studying what had happened to her. He was the ship's geneticist and had never seen anything like the changes in Lisa's DNA. New sequences were activating throughout her genetic code. It was as if the alien device had unlocked hidden potential that had always been there waiting. Commander Alex Carter monitored space around their position for any signs of alien activity. He was worried that the signal might have attracted unwanted attention to their location. His fears proved correct when sensors detected the first alien ships entering human space. The ships came from different directions and belonged to species that had not been seen for countless years. Some approached slowly as if they came in peace. Others moved in military formations that suggested hostile intentions. Earth's defense forces were not prepared for contact with so many alien civilizations at once. On the dying world of Salanta, the tree-like beings called Salanti received the human genetic data with desperate hope. Their planet was being consumed by a plague that their science could not cure. Branch singer Thymol studied the human DNA and found sequences that might save her people from extinction. The Salantai had always been peaceful traders and explorers. They possessed advanced knowledge of biological sciences and environmental control. If they could adapt human genetic traits to their own biology, they might cure the plague and restore their world to health. But not all who received the signal had peaceful intentions. In the dark regions of space, the hegemony began to mobilize their vast war fleets. War Marshal Krax was a being of pure aggression who led an alliance of conquest-minded species. He saw the human genetic potential as a threat to his empire's dominance. Krax had spent centuries building his forces to control the galaxy through fear and superior firepower. The idea that a primitive species like humanity might possess genetic advantages over his advanced warriors filled him with rage. He began planning an invasion to capture or destroy the humans before they could spread their influence. Back on Earth, governments and military leaders struggled to understand what was happening. Reports came in from monitoring stations across human space describing alien ships approaching the solar system. Some came alone while others traveled in massive fleets that could destroy entire worlds. Admiral Kate Rodriguez commanded Earth's defense forces from Luna Base. She had trained for possible alien contact, but never expected to face dozens of different species at the same time. Her ships and weapons were advanced by human standards, but seemed primitive compared to what was approaching. Ambassador Ryan Brooks prepared for humanity's first diplomatic contact with alien civilizations. He had studied every theory about how such meetings might proceed, but the reality was overwhelming. How could he negotiate with beings whose thoughts and motivations were completely unknown? On the USS Endeavour, Lisa Morgan continued to change in ways that amazed and frightened her. She could now sense things happening light years away, as if the alien scan had connected her to some kind of cosmic network. She began to understand that the crystal structure was just one part of a galaxy-spanning system built by an ancient race. These architects had been searching for the perfect genetic template for millions of years. They wanted to create life forms that could evolve beyond current limitations and survive threats that existed beyond normal space and time. In human DNA, they had finally found what they were looking for. Lisa realized that her transformation was just the beginning. The alien scan had identified her as carrying the genetic potential to become something new and unprecedented. She was changing into a bridge between humanity and the advanced civilizations now approaching Earth. As alien fleets continued to arrive in human space, the galaxy held its breath. Some came seeking alliance and cooperation, others prepared for conquest and war. But all were united in their fascination with the genetic treasure that humanity represented. The awakening had begun, and there was no turning back. One drop of human blood had announced to the galaxy that a new player had entered the cosmic game. What happened next would determine whether humanity would be welcomed as partners in galactic civilization or harvested as a genetic resource by those who saw them only as valuable specimens. 6 months had passed since the signal went out across the galaxy, and Earth's solar system had become the most important place in known space. Hundreds of alien ships from dozens of different species surrounded the human homeworld. Some maintained peaceful distance, while others positioned themselves for possible attack. Admiral Kate Rodriguez stood in the command center of Luna Base watching the tactical displays with growing concern. Her defense fleet consisted of 50 ships built with the best technology humanity possessed. Against the alien armadas gathering around Earth, her forces looked like toys facing real weapons of war. The largest alien fleet belonged to the hegemony, whose massive dreadnoughts could destroy planets with single shots. War Marshal Krax commanded. From his flagship, the Devastator, which was larger than Earth's biggest space stations. He had not yet attacked, but his intentions were clearly hostile. Ambassador Ryan Brooks worked day and night to establish communication with the various alien species. The process was complicated because each group had different languages and methods of contact. Some used radio signals while others communicated through energy patterns or even telepathic means. The first successful diplomatic contact came from the Salanti, whose tree-like representatives approached in small, peaceful ships. Branch Singer Thymol was their lead diplomat, and she came with an offer that surprised human leaders. The Salanti needed human genetic material to save their dying world, but they offered valuable technology in exchange. Dr. Lisa Morgan had become central to all negotiations because of her transformation after the alien scan. She could now sense the intentions and emotions of alien beings in ways that normal humans could not. Her abilities made her invaluable as a translator between species that thought in completely different ways. Lisa worked with Dr. Paul Martinez to understand what the Salanti were offering. Their biotechnology could transform dead worlds into garden paradises and create living cities that grew from the ground. In exchange, they wanted voluntary blood samples from humans to develop treatments for their plague. Captain Jake Sullivan returned to Earth aboard the USS Endeavour to report directly to world leaders about the ancient crystal structure. He brought data showing that the artifact was connected to a network of similar devices throughout the galaxy. The architects who built this system had been preparing for something important. President Maria Santos led the emergency council that would decide humanity's response to the alien presence. She faced an impossible choice between sharing human genetic secrets or risking war with civilizations far more advanced than Earth. The wrong decision could mean extinction for the human race. The Christek arrived in ships that looked like flying, mountains made of living crystal. These silicon-based beings had evolved on worlds where metals were rare, and everything was built from grown crystal structures. They offered manufacturing technology that could revolutionize human industry. But the Christek wanted more than just blood samples. They were fascinated by human creativity and problem-solving abilities. They proposed a partnership where humans would help design new technologies while the Christek provided the means to build them on a massive scale. Lisa Morgan discovered that her connection to the architect network was growing stronger each day. She could now access information stored in the ancient system and learn disturbing facts about galactic history. The architects had not disappeared, but had transformed themselves to fight an enemy that existed beyond normal reality. These shadow beings, called devourers, fed on conscious thought itself. They came from parallel dimensions where physical matter did not exist. The architects had spent millions of years preparing defenses against an invasion that had not yet come, but was inevitable. War Marshal Krax grew impatient with the diplomatic delays and issued an ultimatum to Earth. Humanity had 1 week to surrender and submit to genetic harvesting or face complete destruction. His dreadnoughts moved closer to Earth and began charging their planet-killing weapons. The Aquarians sent their delegation in ships that looked like massive jellyfish floating through space. These water-breathing beings had built incredible underwater cities and possessed advanced knowledge of oceanic ecosystems. They offered humanity refuge in their deep-sea colonies if war became unavoidable. Dr. Paul Martinez made a breakthrough discovery while studying Lisa's transformed DNA. The changes in her genetic code were spreading to other humans through some kind of quantum resonance effect. People who spent time near Lisa were beginning to show enhanced healing and improved mental abilities. The phenomenon was subtle but measurable. Earth's biosphere was slowly being influenced by the same energy patterns that had changed Lisa. Plant growth was accelerating and animals were showing increased intelligence. The entire planet was beginning to evolve in response to the architect technology. Ambassador Brooks managed to arrange a meeting between representatives of the peaceful alien species. The Salanti, Christek, and Aquarians agreed to form a defensive alliance with humanity against the hegemony threat, but their combined forces were still no match for Krax's war machine. Elder Lumina of the Ethereal Collective contacted Earth through energy transmissions that only Lisa could fully understand. The ancient beings offered to share their knowledge of consciousness and energy manipulation. They believed humans had the potential to evolve beyond physical limitations entirely. As the week deadline approached, tensions reached a breaking point. Krax's ultimatum would expire in days, and his fleet was in position to carry out his threat. Earth's leaders faced the terrible choice between surrender and certain death for their entire species. Lisa Morgan experienced visions through her connection to the Architect Network. She saw glimpses of the coming war against the Devourers and understood that humanity's role was more important than anyone realized. Human DNA was not just special because of its adaptability, but because it contained the key to victory against beings from beyond reality. President Santos made the fateful decision to reject Krax's ultimatum and fight for human independence. The message was broadcast to all alien fleets surrounding Earth. Humanity would share its genetic gifts with peaceful species, but would never submit to conquest or forced harvesting. The hegemony fleet began moving toward Earth as weapon systems, powered up for the attack. Admiral Rodriguez ordered her ships to defensive positions around the planet, knowing that many would not survive the coming battle. The peaceful alien species prepared to honor their alliance, even though victory seemed impossible. Captain Sullivan took the USS Endeavour to the edge of the solar system, where the ancient crystal structure had been moved for study. Lisa believed the Architect device might hold weapons or defenses that could help in the war. But accessing that technology would require her to undergo another dangerous transformation. As the first shots were fired between hegemony scouts and human patrol, ships the galaxy watched to see if humanity would survive its first test as a spacefaring species. The convergence of alien civilizations around Earth had created the conditions for either humanity's greatest triumph or its complete destruction. The war for human independence was about to begin, and the outcome would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future evolution of life throughout the galaxy. One drop of human blood had started this crisis, and now oceans of blood from many species might be spilled before it ended. President Maria Santos stood before the United Earth Council as reports of the first battles reached the capital. Human ships had engaged hegemony scouts at the edge of the solar system, but the real invasion had not yet begun. She announced a decision that would change the course of galactic history forever. Instead of simply preparing for war, Earth would pursue a bold new strategy. The Terran Genetic Research Initiative would be established to work with peaceful alien species while building defenses against hostile ones. Humanity would not hide its genetic gifts, but would share them selectively to build a coalition strong enough to resist conquest. Dr. Lisa Morgan became the director of the new initiative, working from a secret facility on Luna Base. Her transformation had progressed to the point where she could communicate directly with alien technologies through thought alone. She was no longer entirely human, but had become something unprecedented in galactic history. The first major success came with the Salanti partnership. Branch Singer Thymel arrived on Earth with a delegation of her people's best scientists. They were tall, graceful beings who looked like walking trees with bark-like skin and leaves instead of hair. Their world was dying from a plague that had resisted all attempts at treatment. Lisa worked directly with Thymel to analyze the Salanti genetic structure and compare it with human DNA patterns. The plague was a quantum virus that attacked consciousness itself rather than just physical cells. Traditional medicine was useless, but human genetic adaptability offered hope for a solution. Dr. Paul Martinez led the research team that developed the first human-alien genetic therapy. They used samples of Lisa's enhanced blood combined with specific human DNA sequences to create a treatment that could boost Salanti immune systems. The process was dangerous and required volunteers from both species. The first Salanti volunteer was a young researcher named Leaf Whisper Zane, who was already dying from the plague. The treatment was administered in a special chamber that combined human medical technology with Scilanti biomanipulation techniques. The process took 3 days, during which Zane's life hung in the balance. When Zane emerged from the treatment chamber, the results amazed everyone involved. Not only was he cured of the plague, but his entire physiology had been enhanced. His strength and mental abilities had increased dramatically, while his natural healing factor was now comparable to human levels. Word of the successful treatment spread quickly through Scilanti space. Thymol contacted her homeworld to arrange for massive shipments of their bio-terraforming technology to be sent to Earth. The Scilanti could grow living cities and transform dead planets into garden worlds within months, rather than centuries. The Christek were fascinated by human creativity and proposed their own partnership. Their leader was a being called Prime Facet, who communicated through harmonic resonances in crystalline structures. The Christek had built their entire civilization around grown crystal technology, but lacked the innovative thinking that humans possessed naturally. Captain Jake Sullivan was chosen to lead the first joint human Christek design project. His practical engineering experience combined with Christek manufacturing capabilities produced remarkable results. They developed new types of spacecraft that could repair themselves and adapt to different environments automatically. The Aquarians offered their underwater cities as refugees for human populations if the war with the hegemony went badly. Admiral Kate Rodriguez visited their delegation aboard massive ships that were half submarine and half spaceship. The Aquarians had mastered the science of living in hostile environments. But success brought new dangers, as War Marshal Krax interpreted the growing alliance as a direct threat to hegemony dominance. His massive fleet began moving toward Earth in attack formation, while more reinforcements arrived from hegemony space. The coming battle would involve thousands of ships and determine the fate of multiple civilizations. Elder Lumina of the Ethereal. Collective contacted Lisa Morgan through direct energy transmission. The ancient being revealed that the architects had not vanished, but had transformed themselves into patterns of pure information stored within their network. They were still preparing for the war against the Devourers. Lisa learned that the crystal structure they had discovered was just one node in a galaxy-spanning defense system. There were thousands of similar installations hidden throughout space, waiting to be activated. But only beings with the right genetic patterns could access the full power of architect technology. Dr. Martinez made another startling discovery while studying the genetic changes spreading through Earth's population. The enhancement effect was not limited to humans, but was affecting all life on the planet. Plants were growing faster and stronger, while animals were developing increased intelligence and cooperation. The quantum field generated by the architect technology was slowly transforming Earth's entire biosphere. Some scientists worried about uncontrolled evolution, but Lisa insisted the changes were necessary preparation for the challenges ahead. Humanity would need every advantage possible to survive what was coming. The first major space battle occurred when hegemony advance forces encountered the combined fleet of the human alliance. Admiral Rodriguez commanded from the battlecruiser Terra Nova, while alien allies provided support using technologies that complemented human tactics perfectly. Christek ships formed protective barriers around human vessels, while Scilanti bioships released clouds of organisms that interfered with hegemony targeting systems. The Aquarians used their knowledge of fluid dynamics to predict enemy movement patterns and coordinate attacks with devastating precision. But the Alliance forces were still outnumbered 10-1, and War Marshal Krax had not yet committed his main fleet to battle. The real test would come when the massive hegemony dreadnoughts arrived with their planet-killing weapons and millions of trained warriors. Captain Sullivan made a dangerous decision aboard the USS Endeavor. He took his ship back to the original crystal structure to attempt full activation of the architect network. Lisa's transformation had progressed to the point where she might be able to interface directly with the ancient systems. The process was incredibly risky because no being had ever attempted complete integration with architect technology. Previous attempts by other species had resulted in madness or death, but Lisa's unique human-enhanced genetics might allow her to survive what others could not. As she prepared for the integration procedure, Lisa felt the weight of responsibility for the entire galaxy's future. The architects had spent millions of years preparing for the war against the Devourers, and humanity had somehow become central to their plans. One drop of human blood had started this transformation. The integration chamber within the crystal structure came alive as Lisa approached. Streams of energy began flowing around her as the architect systems recognized her enhanced genetic patterns. She was no longer just human, but had become a bridge between species and dimensions. The procedure began as War Marshal Krax launched his full assault on Earth. Thousands of hegemony ships attacked while the fate of galactic civilization hung in the balance. Lisa's transformation would either provide the weapons needed for victory or result in humanity's complete destruction. As energy flowed through her body, changing her on a fundamental level, Lisa felt her consciousness expanding beyond individual existence. She was becoming part of something vast and ancient that spanned space and time itself. The real war was about to begin. The hegemony assault began with devastating force as War Marshal Krax launched his flagship the Devastator toward Earth's orbital defenses. Behind him came 1,000 warships armed with weapons that could crack planets and burn entire star systems. The opening bombardment destroyed 3 human defense platforms before Admiral Kate Rodriguez could mount an effective response. Luna Base shook under the impact of energy beams that turned solid metal into vapor. Rodriguez commanded from the battle center as her staff coordinated desperate defensive actions. The human fleet was brave, but hopelessly outmatched against hegemony technology that had conquered hundreds of worlds. The Kristech deployed their energy shields around Earth, creating glowing barriers that deflected some of the incoming fire. Their crystal ships moved like living things, adapting their shapes to absorb and redirect enemy attacks. But even their advanced defenses could not stop the overwhelming firepower of Krax's war machine. Salanti. Bioships swarmed through the asteroid belt, releasing clouds of space-adapted organisms that interfered with hegemony sensors and weapons. Branch Singer Thymel coordinated their attacks from her command vessel, which looked like a giant flower, floating in space. Her people fought with courage born of desperation to save their new human allies. The Aquarian fleet emerged from the outer planets using their mastery of fluid dynamics to strike at unexpected angles. Their jellyfish-like ships could change course instantly, making them difficult targets. But for every hegemony ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place, as reinforcements continued to arrive. Aboard the USS Endeavour, Captain Jake Sullivan watched in amazement as Dr. Lisa Morgan underwent her transformation in the Architect Integration Chamber. Energy patterns flowed around her, changing her on a cellular level as ancient technology recognized her unique genetic signature. She was becoming something that had never existed before. The integration process revealed the true scope of the Architect network as thousands of hidden installations throughout the galaxy began awakening. Defensive systems that had been dormant for millions of years came online, responding to Lisa's enhanced consciousness. Weapon platforms emerged from hyperspace to join the battle around Earth, but the transformation also revealed a terrible truth about the enemy the architects had been preparing to fight. The Devourers were not from this universe, but existed in parallel dimensions where consciousness was the only form of matter. They fed on intelligent thought, leaving behind empty shells. Of once living beings, War Marshal Krax pressed his attack despite the unexpected appearance of architect defenses. His dreadnoughts focused their fire on Earth itself, intending to destroy the source of human genetic material before it could spread further. The planet's atmosphere began to burn under the assault of weapons beyond human understanding. Lisa's consciousness expanded as the integration continued, connecting her to the vast information network the architects had become. She learned that they had not died but had uploaded themselves into their technology to survive the coming war. They had been waiting for a species with the right genetic patterns to serve as their champions. Human DNA contained sequences that could resist the consciousness-draining effects of the devourers. More than that, it had the potential to evolve rapidly in response to new threats. The architects had searched for millions of years to find a species that could bridge the gap between matter and energy. As the battle raged around Earth, Lisa felt her individual identity beginning to dissolve into something larger. She was becoming a conduit for architect power, but the process might destroy her humanity forever. The choice was between saving herself or gaining the ability to defend the entire galaxy. Dr. Paul Martinez monitored the integration from his laboratory, as readings went beyond anything his instruments could measure. Lisa's DNA was changing at the quantum level as alien technology rewrote the basic structure of her cells. She was evolving into something unprecedented in galactic history. The tide of battle began to turn as more architect installations activated throughout the solar system. Ancient weapons that operated on principles beyond current science struck at hegemony ships with devastating effect. But Krax had faced advanced enemies before and adapted his tactics to counter the new threats. The War Marshal made a desperate decision as he saw his forces being pushed back by technology he could not understand. His flagship carried a dimensional weapon that could tear holes between realities. He intended to use it to destroy the Architect network by destabilizing local space-time. Captain Sullivan realized the danger as sensors detected massive energy buildups aboard the Devastator. He tried to warn Admiral Rodriguez, but communications were jammed by the battle. The dimensional weapon would not just destroy Earth, but could damage the fabric of reality itself. The weapon fired, creating a rift in space that revealed glimpses of other dimensions beyond normal reality. But instead of destroying the Architect network, the rift provided an opening for something far worse. Shadowy forms began pouring through the tear as the Devourers found a way into this universe. These beings existed as pure hunger for conscious thought. They had no physical form but could drain the life from any intelligent creature they encountered. Hegemony soldiers who came too close to the rift collapsed as their minds were consumed, leaving behind empty bodies. Lisa's transformation reached its completion as the first Devourers entered normal space. She emerged from the integration chamber no longer entirely human, but retaining her essential humanity enhanced by millions of years of architect knowledge. Her consciousness could now span multiple dimensions while her body existed in normal space. The appearance of the Devourers changed everything about the battle. Krax's forces found themselves being consumed by the very entities his weapon had released. The War Marshal realized too late that he had doomed his own empire by opening the dimensional barrier. Elder Lumina of the Ethereal Collective reached out to Lisa through quantum channels, offering the combined knowledge of her people. The energy beings had been preparing for this war longer than any physical species. They knew that only unified action could defeat an enemy that existed beyond normal reality. Architect weapon platforms throughout the galaxy began coordinating their attacks under Lisa's direction. She had become the central intelligence that could process information from thousands of sources simultaneously. Her human intuition combined with architect logic created strategies no purely artificial intelligence could devise. The Zephyrians awakened from their long sleep as High Researcher Vextai detected the dimensional intrusion. Their warrior culture had evolved specifically to fight enemies that could not be defeated by conventional means. They launched their greatest war fleet toward Earth to join the defense against the Devourers, as shadow beings spread throughout the battle zone, consuming both hegemony and alliance forces. Lisa realized that the real war was just beginning. The dimensional rift had to be closed before more Devourers could enter this universe. But doing so would require sacrifices that might doom everyone she was trying to save. The fate of all conscious life in the galaxy now rested on the transformed human who had once been a simple xenobiologist. Lisa Morgan had become something new that combined the best aspects of multiple species while retaining the essential qualities that made humanity special. The final battle against beings from beyond. Reality was about to begin. The dimensional rift continued to expand as more devourers poured into normal space, bringing darkness that consumed everything in their path. These shadow beings had no physical form, but their presence drained consciousness from any intelligent life they encountered. Entire hegemony squadrons fell silent as their crews became empty shells. War Marshal Krax watched in horror as his own soldiers succumbed to the entities his weapon had unleashed. The proud warrior who had conquered dozens of worlds now faced an enemy that could not be fought with conventional weapons. His massive dreadnoughts were useless against beings that existed beyond physical reality. Lisa Morgan stood in the integration chamber aboard the USS Endeavour, feeling the weight of galactic consciousness flowing through her enhanced mind. She was no longer entirely human, but had become a bridge between dimensions, able to perceive and influence realities that others could not see. The Architect Network responded to her thoughts as if she were its living heart. Admiral Kate Rodriguez coordinated the defense of Earth from Luna Base as her remaining ships fought desperately against both hegemony forces and the spreading shadow creatures. Her tactical displays showed chaos as battle lines collapsed under attacks from enemies that conventional sensors could barely detect. Captain Jake Sullivan brought the USS Endeavour close to the dimensional rift despite the extreme danger. Lisa needed to be near the tear in space-time to have any hope of closing it, but approaching the rift meant entering the zone where devourers were strongest and most numerous. The first breakthrough came when Krax made an unprecedented decision. Seeing his empire being consumed by the entities he had released, the War Marshal contacted Admiral Rodriguez to propose an alliance. The survival of all conscious life was more important than their territorial disputes. Dr. Paul Martinez worked frantically to develop weapons that could harm beings of pure consciousness. Using data from Lisa's transformation, he created quantum disruptors that could interfere with the energy patterns that gave devourers their existence. The technology was crude, but it offered hope. Branch singer Thymol of the Salanti contacted every peaceful species in the galaxy through their biocommunication networks. The message was simple but urgent. All intelligent life faced extinction, unless they united against the shadow creatures from beyond reality. Old conflicts had to be forgotten in the face of universal threat. The Zephyrian war fleet arrived at Earth under the command of High Researcher Vextai, who had transformed himself into a warrior-scientist hybrid. His people had spent their hibernation developing weapons specifically designed to fight interdimensional enemies. Their crystal weapons could slice through the boundary between realities. Elder Lumina of the Ethereal Collective made a desperate sacrifice to provide the Alliance with the knowledge needed to fight the Devourers. The energy being allowed part of her consciousness to merge with human technology, creating hybrid systems that could operate on multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. Lisa felt the pain of every mind consumed by the shadow creatures as her enhanced awareness expanded throughout the battle zone. She could perceive the Devourers not as enemies, but as beings driven by an hunger they could not control. They were refugees from a dying universe, seeking the consciousness energy they needed to survive. But understanding their nature did not make them less dangerous. The Devourers would consume every intelligent being in the galaxy if they were not stopped. Lisa began coordinating a response that combined technology from every allied species into a unified defense network. The Kristech modified their manufacturing systems to produce quantum weapons on a massive scale. Their living crystal technology could adapt quickly to new requirements, producing tools that had never existed before. Entire asteroid belts were converted into weapon platforms within hours. Aquarian bioships began releasing organisms specially designed to interfere with devourer energy patterns. These space-adapted creatures could not harm the shadow beings directly, but they created fields of biological static that made it harder for the entities to locate and consume conscious minds. War Marshal Krax found himself fighting alongside the humans he had come to destroy. His massive dreadnoughts provided heavy firepower, while Earth's more agile ships coordinated precise strikes against devourer concentrations. The unlikely alliance proved surprisingly effective. Lisa realized that closing the dimensional rift would require a sacrifice that no one else could make. She would have to enter the space between realities and seal the tear from inside. The process would likely destroy her individual consciousness, but it was the only way to save the galaxy. Dr. Martinez developed the synthesis protocol that allowed any willing being to incorporate beneficial human genetic sequences while retaining their original species characteristics. Volunteers from across the galaxy underwent the enhancement process, becoming stronger and more resistant to devourer attacks. The enhanced warriors formed integrated combat units that combined the best abilities of multiple species. Zephyrian, strength mixed with human adaptability and Christech technology created fighters capable of surviving in the chaos near the dimensional rift. They would escort Lisa on her final mission. Captain Sullivan prepared the USS Endeavour for a journey into interdimensional space. The ship had been modified with technology from every allied species, creating a vessel that could exist partially in multiple realities. It would carry Lisa to the heart of the rift, where she could attempt to seal it permanently. As the final assault began, Lisa felt her connection to humanity growing stronger, even as her individual identity prepared to dissolve into something larger. She carried within her the hopes and dreams of every species fighting for survival. Her sacrifice would either save the galaxy or doom it to eternal darkness. The battle reached its climax as thousands of ships from dozens of species converged on the dimensional rift. Enhanced warriors fought shadow creatures in the space between realities, while scientists worked desperately to stabilize the quantum fields that held normal space together. Lisa entered the rift aboard a specially modified shuttle, feeling the pull of alien dimensions trying to tear her consciousness apart. But her human-enhanced genetics allowed her to maintain coherence in conditions that would destroy any other being. She reached the heart of the tier and began the process of sealing it. The collapse of the dimensional rift sent shockwaves through both realities as the gateway between universes finally closed. The remaining devourers were cut off from their home dimension and gradually faded away. But Lisa's individual consciousness was absorbed into the Architect Network, becoming a permanent guardian of galactic peace. Years later, Ambassador Ryan Brooks reflected on the transformation that had swept across known space. The old boundaries between species had become meaningless as genetic integration created new forms of life that combined the best traits of multiple civilizations. Earth had become the spiritual center of a galactic confederation based on cooperation rather than conquest. The Terran Genetic Research Initiative evolved into the Galactic Enhancement Council, bringing together scientists from every species to continue the work of peaceful evolution. Dr. Martinez served as the first human director of the council, working with representatives from worlds across the galaxy. Children born after the war carried genetic traits from dozens of species, but remained fundamentally human in their curiosity and drive to explore. The galaxy had learned that evolution was not about becoming perfect, but about becoming better, together. One drop of human blood had shown the way forward to a future where diversity was strength and cooperation was survival. The universe would never be the same.